Today, in these videos, I'll go over today's classwork. Today's classwork was a fabulous way, I hope, of, introducing you to the toString method, at least writing your first toString method. You've used a couple toStrings before. Um, you saw it in the array class. You may have seen it one more time in the lecture, but not much. And then also default constructors. The behavior of default constructors. If you were in class today, you might have said, well, was that in the book someplace, that stuff about default constructors? Well, in lesson 16, a lesson we did about 2.5 weeks ago, in the very last sentence of the entire lesson, it mentioned it. And that's it. So it's something we have to practice. Like everything else in our class, reading the book is just not going to do it for us. We have to practice. I'm going to try and quickly go through these 4 classes from today's classwork. Uh, starts off here with the student class, so I'm just going to go right through it. You can pause me as necessary. I certainly hope you do. You should be pausing me whenever you get stuck at all. Pause me and take a look at your own code, compare it. So create a class named student with instance fields for name and seat number. All instance fields from here on out are private. So it's got instance fields for name and seat number. String name and int seat will do fine. You can call them whatever you want to, but don't call them X and Z. Don't call them A and M. Use names that make sense. And that's all it says to do. Compile as you go along. We're good, no errors. And now it says make a student tester class. I've got it set up there for us. In the main, put that one statement there. I'm going very fast, but you can pause me. And then the question 1 says, does it compile? Let's see, does everything compile so far? We just do it in the BlueJ, and everything here compiles. I haven't touched roster yet, but student tester, everything is compiling nice, no errors. So number 1 there is a big fat YES, yes. Number 2, in the student class, do some more stuff. So student right now compiles, no problem. They're going to add the constructor that takes a string which initializes name. So public student, and it takes a string. Do not name this string name. Major mistake all around the room in every class today, making those arguments have the same name as your variable. No, 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 never ever make 2 variables in the same class the same name. You can get away with it sometimes, but more often than not, you don't know how to get away with it. So be careful. And so we just name this thing something else besides name, call it n, and say name equals n. Let's still compile this guy here. Yes, I didn't finish my directions here. It says initialize that and make the seat number -1. I went too fast there. Seat is -1. Compiled again. All good. Does the student class compile? Yes. Does the student tester class compile? It did before I added the constructor, but now it doesn't compile. We'll go over this again tomorrow, first thing. But again, that's that sentence in the book. It is permissible to have no constructors in the class. However, if the other constructors are present, the default constructor must also be present if called. So basically, adding another constructor erases that default constructor. Very tough concept, I know. Very tough. You got to be paying attention right now. If I take this away, then now we have a default constructor. Now this tester works. But I'm not going to type in a default constructor. I'm going to put in an argument constructor, and that effectively erases, gets rid of, deletes, whatever, the default constructor that was there. So this answer here is no. What did you discover? If you write no constructors for a class, Java gives us an implicit, that means invisible, understood, invisible, default constructor. That's why number one was yes. But if you create a different constructor, the default constructor goes away, and therefore it must be written. Okay, so go ahead and add the default constructor to the student class. The exam will always put constructors in a certain order. They'll put the default one first, and then the other one second, or second and third. Okay, and now that still compiles, and our student tester now is happy it compiles. Okay, what's next? So now everything compiles. So two yeses here, YES and YES, no problem. Okay, number 4, let me do number 4 with you. Add these statements here. Control C to the student tester. And so now we're just testing both constructors. Okay, and we're also going to see what happens when we output a student. No errors, but when we run it, you might expect to see something nice on the screen, like John Doe or Doe John or whatever. What do we put over here for the name? We put in Jane Chen, but when we run it, we get stuff that we don't want. We get garbage up here. Student at some nonsense. I think what this nonsense is something like the memory address location of the object. It's something, I don't know what it is, but anyway, it's garbage. We don't want that. But it sure would be nice to not have to write get methods to get the name or the seat number. Instead, just be able to display it like you do an int variable or a string variable, out.println x if x is an int, out.println name if name is a string. And to do that, we have to add the code in the next section here to the student class. Public string, toString, our first toString method that we're putting into a class all year long. Okay, again, the AP exam has a certain hierarchy of its classes or order of things. The AP exam always puts the variables first, the instance fields first. They always put the default constructor next, and then the rest of the constructors. And the last thing in an AP exams class is the toString method. toString is always written public string, toString, empty parentheses, capital S on both these strings. That's how you have to always write it, or else it won't work. You have to always write public, capital S string is a return type, and the name is toString with a capital S on string. That's why you have to write it for any class, the rectangle class, circle class, whatever class we have, that's how it's written. And so the temptation is to put your out.println here. But it's not a void. You don't out.println something here. It's a string return type. You have to return a string. And so I've got an int and a dash in a string, and then the name of the string. All this adds up to a string. It compiles nice, And then our output is not garbage anymore. Our output should be something nice. Okay, the seat number, the arbitrary -1 position, and then the name.